Hi, everybody. It's week 10, and we had a little bit of a break this week. We've been doing some pretty heavy stuff in the Caribbean, and we will continue to do that work all the way through to the end of term. But we're at the moment in the semester where students are thinking about their own final projects. And in this class, students can choose between a traditional graduate seminar paper of roughly 20 pages, or they can choose a project that is more closely aligned to their creative, design, pedagogical interests. Many of students at Auburn who are in our graduate program are masters in creative writing or in technical and professional communication. And so these formats suit them better. And so we've been meeting for the last week doing one on one discussions about what those projects are going to look like. Each project is going to have a 10-page metacognitive reflection, which will do a lot of the work that a traditional graduate seminar paper would do. That is to say, it will engage with both primary and secondary sources. It will think very critically, not only about those works, but about the work they have produced. And that's the way to have an accessible, a gradable object without grading someone's creative work. I am not a creative writing professor. I am not a design professor. I am not a professor of interpretive dance, but all of those things are fair game for students to create and then reflect on. The world is wide open in the spirit of play. And what better person to have us have a conversation with than Quintin Smith, whose work in games journalism has been as long as my own career, and has been an influence on my own work speaking to the public. I probably wouldn't have this YouTube channel if not for the influence of things like People Make Games and Shut Up and Sit Down. And I've been working with Quinns over the last months on thinking about TTRPGs as well as actual play in my own work. So he very kindly agreed to stay up late into the night, in fact, into the next morning to talk to my students. And this is where, for those of you who are new to the channel, I have to explain a little something, which is that what I really want out of class visitors is as much candor as possible. Many people that I invite into my class, past guests have included people like Matt Mercer, Abria Iyengar, Taylor Moore, Tim Hutchings, and many more. And I want them to feel as comfortable as possible talking off the cuff in a space that is reasonably safe. And that means that when those encounters are happening using Zoom, I don't record them unless the subject requests that that is the case. And to date, over the last 3 years, only one person has requested that I both record and publicly share that conversation. And you can find that if you go hunting. Um, for everyone else, I do a little bit of a thing like this, which is to say, this is why this person was brought into the classroom, why they were a good fit, as well as this kind of disclaimer of how I use kind of these primary sources of people in my class. So, Quinn's felt like a good choice as we think about expressing things to the public. And the state of games journalism, there's a brand new academic work, which is linked down in the description. It's open source through MIT Press on game journalism, which I think is really worthwhile. We read the introduction to that, as well as Quinns is in an interesting transition moment and a moment of reflection on past careers in video game and board game reviewing and journalism as he transitions into my territory of tabletop role playing games. So the stars aligned in really interesting ways in that way. And so conversation tonight included everything from reflecting on strategies for playing the Jane Austen role-playing game Good Society to the work that he is most proud of and thinks of as the most influential of the work that he's produced over his long career, ideas and thoughts about the different funding models uh, of the work of online stuff, and a whole lot more. Um, and I think that it is um, useful to point you down to the description to both the interview that he's done with his People Make Games partner, Chris Bratt, for the Games Press podcast, as well as his interview with Thomas Manuel of the Yes Indeed podcast, as really useful kind of ways to hear more of that. Um, Much of what we talked about was either stuff you can find in those, or we're doing a kind of very specific one-on-one work with our students in different kinds of ways. Uh, and for those of you who are curious, this was actually originally intended to be an in-person conversation. I do not normally ask people to stay up late into their evenings to talk to students, but for those of you who do not know, Quinn's severely injured his leg earlier this month, basically putting paid to his stateside visit for a variety of other events alongside a trip to Auburn. So this was the one. Class visit that we maintained of almost a half dozen that were, as well as public facing events, but still totally worth it. And so, yeah, so I think that I know that there are some folks who watch this who are really interested to see, like, what new insights does Quinn's have in this space. And I don't know that that's really something that you're gonna get out of this video. I'm sorry. Um, but I think that it was a good um, kind of meeting of the minds of some folks who were not much older than he was when he started his career. And I think that it's interesting to think about the ways in which um, so much has changed. There's some enduring conversation that I think we're going to continue to have about um, kind of positionality and gender and generation, the ways that things have shifted, what his positionality makes possible. That it would be lovely if it was possible for more folks. Jury's out on that. um, but yeah, so yeah, this is a short one, a short recap, which is all to kind of be a signpost to say this was the week where we talked about our projects and we talked about them with an excellent interlocutor who was able to do some interesting kind of um, guiding through some of the work that he is most proud of. And again, uh, you can find a lot of that elsewhere. But that's the thing about teaching is that um, the organic flow of that kind of information, I think, is really useful. So yeah, so that's it for this week. I head off to Big Bad Con for the rest of the week, and we will return next week, and we have finished Zong and are moving into another half session with a visiting expert. Next week is Alyssa Sepinwall, the author of Slave Revolt on Screen, which is an analysis of both film and televisual, as well as video game depictions of the Haitian Revolution. So we are going to talk to her for the first half of class and then talk about the second half of her book, kind of after she's left us, which focuses exclusively on video games. We're going to take a look at some of those games, which, thanks to the Internet Archive being back up online, we will be able to play because they are archived there. And if not, we're going to have an interesting conversation about the fragility of born digital media. Either way, it'll be a good and educational experience. And then, oh my gosh, We are rounding near the end of term. It's hard to believe. But the final weeks are student voted on. And so we are getting ready to look at the vampire and the black vampire and recently arrived 500-year-old vampire, the educational classroom version of Tim Hutchings' solo journaling game, Thousand-Year-Old Vampire. And then we're going to be done. Hard to believe. I hope you're all well. And if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them as always. You can put them down in the comments. Thank you all for tuning in to this little vlog about this little class that has been a real source of joy this semester. I hope you are all well.